Mr. Shany G on the mic, let's vibe. Tell me how you feeling, don't hide the inside. Real talk, real love, real healing. Welcome to the show, that's how you feeling.
Hey y'all, it's your host, Miss Shany G if you nasty, and welcome back to another episode of That's How You're Feeling. That's right, we've got another episode for you, and today I'm going to be talking about something that's a little bit heavy, and by a little bit, I do actually mean a lot. So, I'm going to be talking about domestic violence, intimate partner violence, and gender based violence today. And so, I want to give a trigger warning. If this is something that's heavy for you, if it's something that's hard to talk about, I'm going to ask that you please exit now or have someone around you that's supportive while we discuss this. So, I want to talk about gender based violence and domestic violence and how it starts young. So, I think it's important for me to tell you all that I am a survivor of both domestic violence and intimate partner violence. And I'm standing here today because of the love and care that I had from others in my life, but also because I found my strength. And that's not something that's easy to do. And I know a lot of folks are probably like, that could never be me. I would never end up in that type of situation. That type of situation. Sorry, it's hard for me to talk about. But you might feel like I'll never end up in that situation. And the reality is some of us don't end up in that situation because we go seeking it or because we just happen to stumble upon it. Sometimes it's something that's ingrained in us from a very young age. And so I want to get into that. I want to get into how domestic violence entered my life. So I said I'm a survivor, right? And you might think, Shanice, that something recent? No, I'm a survivor of gender-based violence that I've experienced my entire life. And so I'm going to start at the very beginning. When I was a little girl, my parents went through a very toxic divorce. And through that, I saw a side of one of my parents that I had never really seen before. So when I was little, I was very much a daddy's girl. You couldn't tell me anything about my dad. I loved him so much. And so when I was disciplined by my father, I didn't necessarily think of it as anything wrong. Now, if you've grown up in a black household, a Caribbean household, an immigrant household, um, or just a household where your parents were raised a very particular way, you know that violence sometimes is seen as the only avenue in disciplining a child. And so, unfortunately, because my father was raised in a home where violence was something that was used as discipline, it was something that he also perpetuated against me. And so when I was very young, there were a couple of instances, and I'm not going to really go into detail, where my father was physically violent with me. And something that I learned at a young age was to justify this. So, when you're young and your parents are disciplining you, you don't know that there are other forms of discipline. You don't know what gentle parenting is. You've never heard of it. All you know is the type of discipline that you experience in your home. And so, for me, that type of discipline just felt normal. It wasn't actually until I was a little bit older that I had gone to a family member's house where they wanted to exhibit that same type of discipline towards me. And I actually ended up calling the police. Now, I've apologized, and it's weird because I've apologized for calling the police on this person. But at the time, it felt like something that I needed to do. I was just not interested in getting licks, getting beatings. It was not something that I was going to tolerate. And so I ended up calling the police on this family member, and was taken home to my mother. This was after my parents' divorce. And I remember feeling like I had done something wrong for advocating for myself. And not because my mom, like, it's not because my mom was like, oh my gosh, how dare you? My mom was like, you did the right thing. But for me at the time, I felt bad. I still feel bad. It's weird. Like, advocating for yourself, especially when it comes to family members, it feels like you've done something wrong. Like, you're not supposed to one, you're not supposed to call the police, period. You're not supposed to involve the police, period. And that was something that, like, I think a lot of us are taught at an early age. You don't want to be a snitch, especially not on family. And so I just, like, didn't know it was okay to advocate for myself, even though I already did. Is that not weird? It's like I knew I could advocate for myself, but I felt wrong about it. And I think that's something that a lot of kids feel when you're young. When you are getting disciplined, you're not supposed to get your parent in trouble, right? We've all watched the TV shows, we've all seen movies where child services comes and they get involved, and now all of a sudden you're taken away from your family. And so it was something that I felt really, really bad about. And I remember after that kind of like shutting down around advocating for myself in certain situations. And so for the next few years, I would say that I kind of just kept my head down. I really did. I didn't want to get in trouble. I didn't want to get beatings. I didn't want to tell anybody if I got beatings. I really was like kind of like already starting to make myself small. And I don't know about y'all, but I was a writer as a child. I loved writing. And so I had written a bunch of like little diary entries about being just sad all of the time when I was little. And I talked about it a lot in my journals. And I remember it's just because I felt small. I had already started to feel small. My father was somebody who had a big personality. Um, it was his way or the highway. And so I was someone who oftentimes didn't think I had space for myself. And my parents were going through a divorce, and I had a new baby brother. So I just felt like I didn't have space for me, period, anywhere at all. And so that's really where it starts. It starts with at home, it starts with people making you feel small from a young age. You don't start out making yourself small, other people do that to you. And especially when it's done at an age where you don't know any better, it's hard to remove yourself from those feelings. And so just kept going through life. And then I remember when I was about 11 years old, 11 or 12, my mom had this boyfriend and he wanted his way in the relationship. And I will never forget being like maybe 9 or 10 years old. Was I 11 yet? I don't even think I was 11 yet. I was like 9 or 10. And I will never forget. It's wild how you forget your age, but you don't forget the moment that it happened. But I will never forget walking in to my kitchen late at night and seeing this man with his hands on my mother. And I remember taking a frying pan and like hitting him over the head with it, and me and my mom running into my room and us locking the door and her telling him she was going to call the police if he didn't leave. And that was like the first time that I saw intimate partner violence amongst my mom and someone other than my dad. Because I had seen it between my parents one time. I saw my dad get physical with my mom. And this was when she was pregnant. And I'm not going to go into too much details about that either because that's her story to tell. But this was like the first time that I'd seen outside of my dad. So, you know, when it's your dad, you kind of make excuses because it's your parent. But this was a man that was not my father. This was a man that had not been in my life since I was born. And I remember being so scared. I remember being so scared for my mom, scared for me and my brother, scared for us in general. And I really thought to myself, like, that will never be me. I'll never have myself in that situation. And it's wild because I'd already been in the situation. I'd already faced domestic violence at home at the hands of my father. And I'm not going to sit here and say that my dad was like beating me every single day. That wasn't it. But it was something that I had already been used to. And not just, I think this is the other thing when we think about domestic violence, it's not just physical violence, it's also emotional. It's also mental. And so by the time that I had seen the situation with my mom and her boyfriend, I had already been psychologically and emotionally abused at this point. Because like I said, my parents went through a really nasty divorce, and throughout that time I was kind of, as the older child, was being used. I was being used, I was being told things, I was being pulled between my parents, and so it was hard. It was hard when I had experienced that, and my mom had experienced that. And so, like I said that would never be me. And then my mom married my stepdad, and it introduced a whole other world of domestic violence. So, my mom married my stepdad when I was 11, turning 12. Or I think I had already turned 12 when they got married. And I really loved my stepdad at first. I thought he was amazing. I was the one who introduced him to my mom. He lived in our building. We were all chilling outside. He was like being nice to us kids, playing soccer with us. And I remember me and my brother like being like, we really like him. And so him and my mom started dating, and there was a bit of an age gap between the two of them. And so when they got married, it was like a time of turmoil. My father had stopped coming to get me and my brother. We weren't seeing him anymore. And so that was hard. It was hard. I was about to be a tween at 12 years old. My life feels like it's falling apart. My father's abandoned me. I'm going to middle school for the first time. And life just felt like everything was being pulled out from under me while I'm going through this transition. And so I won't say that I was a perfect child, because I don't think any child is perfect. You know, people might think their child's perfect, but I don't think any child's perfect. I had a bit of an attitude. I was dealing with depression and didn't know that's what it was. I didn't know what to call it. I don't think my mom knew what to call it. I don't think anyone knew, really. Like, I was going to see psychiatrists at the time because my parents divorced, and I think they just chalked it up to me being sad because my parents were divorcing and it was like a tumultuous time. But I was depressed. I was like actually depressed. And so it was a rough time. And my stepdad, who was young, in his 20s, mid-20s, is like marrying an older woman who already has two children, and two children that are dealing with their father leaving them. And so it was a rough time. It was a rough time. And I hold space for that. I think this is also something that I do, and I think a lot of survivors or victims do, is where we rationalize our abuse. We rationalize what happened to us. And so my stepdad, I don't think he knew any other way to deal with children, sorry, to discipline children other than physical violence. And I remember the first time he put his hands on my brother, and I was not going for it. Because one thing you were not going to do, my babies are my babies. I love my brother so much. You were not going to put your hands on my brother. And I remember me and my stepdad getting into a physical altercation. And this happened a lot. This happened a lot from, I'm going to say, 12 to 16. This happened a lot, where me and my stepdad would get into physical altercations. I will never forget, I had a best friend at the time who, we lived in a 4-floor apartment building. And me and my stepdad had gotten into it because I was on the phone and he didn't think I should be on the phone. And I had locked myself in the bathroom and he was trying to kick down the bathroom door. And he chased me out of my apartment upstairs to my friend's apartment. And I remember just screaming for her to open her door, just screaming. And she opened the door and I just slid in and she slammed the door shut. And that was really the beginning of me and my stepdad's. Like, him putting his hands on my brother was kind of the start, but like that incident was when it was a wrap for our relationship altogether. It was a wrap. And it continued like that. It continued like that. Now you might be saying, Shanice, where was your mom during all of this? And this was part of the problem. My mom was working a lot. She was working a lot. And my stepdad, at the time, I didn't have a cell phone. So my stepdad would get to my mom before I could. And because I was already a troubled kid, I was already, dealing with a lot. I was already kind of like partying at this time a bit, was, just kind of rude to my mom. I had an attitude all of the time. My stepdad was able to position me as this like violent child that was just like attacking him and not listening and violently attacking him. And because my mom wasn't seeing anything else, she believed him. Now, me and my mom, I want to say this. I love my mom to death. We've had conversations about this. We've gone in depth about this. We've cried, we've argued, we've done all of the things. But I will say, like, I was very hurt at the time. I felt betrayed. I felt left alone. My mom was having all of these conversations with him in the background about what he was doing and how he was handling things. But I wasn't witnessing these conversations. And so I felt very alone, felt very, very alone. And throughout this time, I was having boyfriends that didn't make me feel good about myself, that were liars, that perpetuated a lot of the same things that my father did. And so it was just the men around me weren't men that were uplifting me, other than really my uncle and my grandfather. And my uncle was such an instrumental part of my life. My uncle was everything to me. My uncle was my best friend, my confidant, my judge, jury, all of it. He was everything to me. And when I was 13 years old, or 14, I just turned 14. When I was 14 years old, he passed away. And it destroyed me. It made me feel like I was completely alone, like I had nothing, like I had no one. Um, I fell so deep in a depression, I didn't think I'd be able to get out. It was hard. It was really, really hard. And during this time, I was still fighting my stepdad. I was still physically fighting my stepdad. I was still, oh God, I remember there was a time where I was whipping canned foods at him to keep him away from me. I would physically fight him because I refused. I refused. I said I would not be that person. I would not allow someone to just put their hands on me and that be okay. And so then the catalyst came. This was the big thing. So I had had enough of my stepdad putting his hands on me, and a friend had lent me a switchblade. And one day my stepdad came in my room. He was upset that I was listening to music. I think it was a Sunday. My stepdad's Mormon, and so he was not okay with it, and he broke my CD player. And I pulled the knife on him. And I said, "You will not touch me again. You will not." And that's when all hell broke loose. He went screaming for my mom. My mom started freaking out. And I was like, that's it, I'm leaving. And so I proceeded to try to leave. And as I was trying to leave, at some point the police got called. And my stepdad was trying to stop me from leaving. And so we're physically fighting in the hallway at this point. Like, I've taken off my shoe. I'm hitting him over the head with it. We're physically fighting. We're rolling around the hallway. At this point, one of our neighbors comes out. She separates us. She brings me into her apartment. And the police show up. And, of course, my stepdad gets to them first. And what ends up happening, I get arrested at 14. And I get charged. And so I end up going to jail, not jail. I end up going to the holding cell. And long story short, they end up dropping the charges. And part of it was like anger management, and I had to go to mediation with my stepdad. And that wasn't the first time that I was arrested for him physically assaulting me. It happened again when I was 16. I was arrested again. They chose not to charge me that time. I was taken to a hospital where they wanted to keep me on hold, psychiatric hold, until I explained to them what was happening in my house. And I said, I'm not violent. I'm not crazy. I'm a teenager who, for the last 4 to 5 years, has been physically having to defend myself in my home. And they understood and they let me go. Now, it's important to add, like, throughout this time, I had moved in and out of my mother's house. By 17, I had probably moved out 3 times, came back, moved out again. And then at 17 is when I met the biggest mistake of my life. And it's funny, I was talking to my younger cousin about this the other day, and I said to her, I lost the best years of my life to a bad man. So at 17, I met my ex boyfriend, and we're just going to call him R. So I met R when I was 17. And I remember him feeling safe. I remember him telling me that he wasn't the jealous type. I remember him showering me with so much love and care. I remember our first date and him showing up with roses. I remember laughing with him. I remember him telling me about his life and how he grew up and how there was domestic violence in his life. And, his grandparents were residential school survivors. And, his parents had dealt with a lot. And so I felt safe. I said, this is somebody who's not going to hurt me. And it felt like that for a while. It did. And me and my mom had got into it again, so I moved out and he offered me a place to stay. And for the first time in a long time, since my uncle passed, I felt like someone genuinely cared about me, genuinely wanted to make sure I was okay and safe. He took care of me. I'll never deny that. Those first few months, he did everything to take care of me. But I started to feel smothered. I was young and I wanted to have fun, and I felt like I was in a marriage at 17 and I wasn't ready for that. I didn't want that. And so I moved out. I got my own room. I rented a room. And that's when it really started to decline. That's when it really got bad. His attitude changed. I remember I told him, I want to be a girlfriend, I don't want to be a wife, and he lost it. He lost it. I remember sitting in my room telling him this, and he lost it. And then I ended up pregnant at 17. And I wanted to be a mom so bad. I still want to be a mom so bad. And I remember his reaction. He was threatening to throw bricks through my window. He forced me to pee on a stick in front of him. He became erratic. And I knew I couldn't raise a baby in that situation. I knew it. It was not something that I could do. It was not something I wanted to do. I was not going to raise a baby in a situation where this was going to be happening. And so I terminated the pregnancy. And while that was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made, because terminating a pregnancy is not easy. People might joke about it, but for a lot of folks, it is a difficult, heartbreaking decision. And it just got worse from there. It got worse from there. One night, I had gone out with friends and I wasn't feeling comfortable there. And so I had asked him if I could come see him. And we were kind of broken up at this time. And I got to his house and he was drunk, wasted. And I just wanted to get out of the taxi. He was arguing with the taxi driver. I just wanted to get out. I finally got out of the taxi. He wanted a hug. I didn't want to hug him in that moment because he was drunk. And because I refused to hug him, he attacked me. He threw my stuff all over the ground. He began to beat me. I remember the top of my mouth was raw because I had started to scream for help, and he had shoved his hands down my mouth to block my screams. And I was able to finally grab my stuff and run. And there was a taxi, and I begged the taxi. I said, "Please, I have no money, but please just take me to the nearest bus station. Please, please, please." And as the taxi driver was driving away, my ex grabbed onto the taxi and was hanging onto it and ended up falling off. And I left him. I left him after that. I left him for a year. I left for a year and was living on my own and was struggling with my depression. And he was constantly calling, and apologizing and saying he had done the work and he had gone to therapy and he'd gone and did ceremony and he was better. And I went back. I went back. The second biggest mistake of my life. I went back because I felt alone, because I wanted to feel loved, because it felt like I had no one in the world who cared about me. And he was trying to show me he cared. Like, he was like, I put in the work. And so we got back together. And I learned pretty early on that he had not done the work. And so I spent another 5 years being physically abused, emotionally abused, mentally abused. I began to self harm. I began drinking so much that there were moments that I had completely blacked out. I remember I called my dad for help and he didn't come. And so the lesson that I was learning through this all was it's okay to beat up Shanice. It's okay to do these things to Shanice because no one's going to come and save you. If anything, you're going to get in trouble. The police are going to arrest you. When people put their hands on you, you're the one who's going to get arrested. So that's what I started to believe, that I wasn't worthy, that I wasn't worth it, that I wasn't worth fighting for, that I didn't deserve to be safe and loved and cared for. And it was hard. It was a very dark time in my life. From 17 to 24, I felt like I had no self-worth. I felt like everything that was being said to me was correct. I felt like what was being done to me is what I deserved. And there were times like I almost didn't graduate high school because I'd missed so much school from being bruised and not going to class. I ruined my university career. My first year of university, I found myself pregnant again. Um, and trigger warning, this was from a sexual assault at the hands of my abuser. And I had to terminate the pregnancy again. And this wasn't a choice this time. This was a medical decision that my doctors made, that it had to happen. And I remember getting the call from the midwives saying that they had matched me with a midwife the day that I had to terminate my pregnancy. And I wanted that baby so bad. Lord, I wanted that baby so bad. But wasn't able. Wasn't able. And at the time I was so upset. Like I remember like being so angry and not understanding why. Like, I thought I was getting punished for terminating my first pregnancy. I thought I was being punished. And I think God, creator, whoever's out there, the ancestors knew that my baby wouldn't have had a happy life. And so it wasn't the right time for that baby. But it devastated me. It devastated me. And so I spent the next couple of years of university throwing myself into anything and everything but what was happening at home. And I think a lot of people might be confused about me having lived this type of life because I'm such a big advocate now and I speak out and I'm someone who supports people going through difficult things, but it was because I knew what was happening in my own home that I wanted to stop that type of thing happening with others. And so I made it my mission at school to like throw myself into everything equity and like support students and advocate for better treatment at the school and to fight against the tyranny of a university. I did everything I could to pour myself into something that wasn't home, that wasn't what I was dealing with. And then my ex had to move to another province. And that was my way out. That was my way out. He moved to another province, and I went to go out there for a summer. I worked out there for a summer with him and his family. And I got back to Canada. Back to Canada, sorry. Back to Ontario. Got back to Ontario by myself. And I had this sense of freedom that I had never felt before. And he didn't like it. He didn't like that I was free. He didn't like that I was living my best life. And so one night after I had gone to a gala for the island that my family's from, my ex called me drunk. And he threatened to post every single inappropriate photo that I had ever shared with him or that he had of me on the internet. And I remember just begging him, like, please don't do this. Why would you do this? Please don't do this. And then he decided to call me the N word. He was like, F you, you N word, and your N word loving mom and your N word family. And if folks, you're tuning in for the first time, I'm mixed, I'm Afro Indigenous. And so, yeah, that was the icing on the cake. Now, you were probably like, Shanice, girl, it should have been all the other stuff. It should have been all the other stuff, but that was really it. That's what caused me to walk away. I said, yeah, that, woo, baby, you lost me there. And I ended the relationship. And that was one of the best things I ever did in my life. And I'm proud of me. Other people might not be proud of me. Other people might think I should have left earlier. I should have done this. I should have done that. I don't care. I'm proud of me. And I'm proud of anybody who leaves. I don't care if it's your first time, your sixth time, your 10th time. I'm proud of you. Every time you leave, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you when you stay away. My heart breaks for you when you return, but I'm proud of you when you leave, no matter the circumstances, no matter what the final straw was, no matter if you were with somebody for 5 minutes or 50 years and you decided to leave abuse. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of me. I'm proud of Shanice at 24. I walked away. And then it was scary. It was terrifying. I walked away and it was terrifying. I don't know if you're a survivor, but when you finally are free of something, right? Like I had my whole life planned with this man. I had my whole life planned. I was going to become a lawyer. We were going to get married. We were going to have kids. I had built a fantasy. I had built a fantasy because I needed to believe in something. I needed to believe that it was going to get better. And so I built a fantasy life where like I accomplished all these things and I did all these things and I had this happy life with these kids and this husband and all of this stuff that wasn't going to happen because we were never going to be that. One, I was in denial, still in denial about being gay. So I was gonna have to leave that relationship anyways. But we were not emotionally okay to be those people that I thought we could be. We weren't gonna get there. Not in that relationship. I wasn't gonna get there in that relationship. I wasn't gonna be the best me in that relationship. There's no way. There's no way the Shanice that stands here before you today was going to ever manifest in that relationship. I was going to suffocate. I was going to put a pillow over my face, suffocate in that relationship. But then I had all of these options and I didn't know who Shanice was. Because the last time I was just Shanice, I was just me, I was 17. And so I left this abusive relationship and I went crazy, y'all. I partied, I drank, I had the time of my mother effing life because I could. Because no one was going to tell me that I couldn't dye my hair or I couldn't get more tattoos or I couldn't travel or I couldn't go to parties with my friends. No one was going to tell me shit. Because guess what? I'm big boss now. Me, big boss. I always was big boss. I just forgot that. And I went a little crazy. A little crazy. And I realized I wasn't happy. I was free and I was happy to be free, but I wasn't happy because I didn't know what happiness was anymore. And I was trying to chase the happiness that a 17-year-old chases, not a grown ass woman. Girl, you 24. You ain't 17. And then I started to make changes. I really started to make changes. I started going to therapy more. I got diagnosed with severe depression and anxiety in my 20s. And I stopped drinking for a bit because I was drinking to null the pain. I wasn't drinking to have a good time. I wasn't drinking to enjoy myself. I was drinking to null the pain. And it's hard. Leaving is hard. People like to make it seem like leaving is easy. It's not easy. It's one of the hardest things that you can do. It really is. And so, yeah, I was like, who am I? What am I going to do? How am I going to explore myself? What is my voice? What do I enjoy? What foods do I enjoy? What movies do I love to watch? What music do I want to dance to? And how can I love myself? That's what I wanted to figure out. How do I love myself? Don't this is how I chew my straws. Don't judge me. But yeah, and it was a journey. I'm 33 years old now and I'm still figuring out how to navigate life. It's going to take you a while. To all my survivors, it's going to take you a while. Be gentle with yourself. Be gentle because all the trauma that made your abuser who they were, they poured that into you. And then you mix that in with all the negative feelings that you have about yourself, your insecurities. You let them pour their shit into you. And now you're just here. You're here with it. And you got to figure out how to let it go because you're not just unpacking how you feel about yourself. You're unpacking how someone else made you feel. That's what you're doing. And it's it's okay to try to make sense of why things happen. Like for me, I understand, it helps me to understand why people are the way they are. So for me, it's like I can understand that my dad had no other way or knew no other way to discipline his child other than what he was taught by his own parents. And I knew my ex had no other sense of understanding of what love was supposed to look like. And especially because of what colonialism and slavery and systemic discrimination and everything that's caused them to be the way that they are. Like this doesn't happen in a silo. This happens because of systems. They make people this way. But what I had to realize, something I had to come to grips with, is that just because society makes them that way does not mean that it's okay for them to then treat me that way. I'm not deserving of that. I deserve love and care and compassion and gentleness and kindness. That's something that I had to really push into myself. That's something you have to push into yourself. You have to remind yourself that you deserve love and kindness and compassion and all of the things. You deserve that. Can't nobody take that away from you. They can try. They can try and they will try. But it's always going to be there. That's something that I realized. There's a tattoo that I have. I can't show it right now on my arm. And it's by Alice Walker. And it says, the most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any. I got that from a Criminal Minds episode. I was watching the episode and they said that and I said, God damn, that's right. And the most common way people take away your power is by thinking you don't have any. I thought I didn't have power. I thought I didn't have anyone else who loved me. That was another delusion. Girl, Delulu. I told myself nobody else loved me. But this person who's beating me every day and doing all of these things to me, no one else loves me but this person. What? Delusional. Because my mom loved me deeply. She had broken my trust, which is why I didn't go to her during this time. But she had learned. By then, she had learned. By then, she had done the work. And my mom loves me fiercely. My brothers love me fiercely. And I forgot that. That's what domestic abuse does. That's what intimate partner violence does. It makes you forget that there are people in the world that love you, that have loved you, and can love you. Because that was the other thing I was afraid of, that I would never find love again. That wasn't love. I hadn't found it in the first place. I had convinced myself I was never going to find love again. No one was ever going to love me. Girl, what? That wasn't love to begin with. You weren't loved. You were abused. That wasn't love. And so if you're sitting out there thinking, I'm never going to find love again, like no one's ever going to want me, that person didn't love you. That person did not love you. Because you're going to know what love feels like when it hits. You're going to, oh, God, it's the most beautiful feeling. You're going to know it. When that love hits, and that love doesn't have to come from another intimate partner. Girl, when I had that love from friends, when I felt that love from friends, and that was the other thing, I had friends during that time who loved me deeply. But we are taught to prioritize intimate romantic relationships. We are taught that that's where love comes from. And so we spend a lot of time searching for it, oftentimes in the wrong spaces. oftentimes in the wrong spaces. So it's hard. It's hard because there's no playbook. There's no playbook. And when you are taught from such a young age to endure abuse, when you're taught from a young age to feel like you don't matter, that was something my therapist had said to me. When I say that I'm not good enough, she's like, "Why do you say that? What's the original feeling?" It's because I felt like I didn't matter. That's what I felt. That was something that was ingrained in me from a young age. That I didn't matter. Not in the ways that I needed. And then at my big age of 32, I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. And that helped me figure out why I was ending up in the relationships that I was ending up in. It was a pattern. It was something that I had found myself repeating because of my diagnosis. Sometimes we don't even realize we're in patterns. We just keep replicating the same harm over and over and over again. And it's because we get used to the chaos. My friend Devin said that in one of our other episodes. You get used to the chaos. It feels good. You don't know anything else but it. So you convince yourself that it's the real thing. You convince yourself that it's love. You convince yourself that it's safety. You convince yourself that it's comfortable because it's all you know. I didn't realize that I hadn't experienced love for real until my wife. Outside of friends, of course. I realized that early on. Once I left that abusive relationship, I realized the love of my friends that was there, that I was like, wow, this is genuine. But romantic love, I thought I knew what it was, and then I really experienced it. And so I want to give out hope to folks that, like, you too can be, what is it? 7 years? Is that 7? No, that's 9. 9 years out of an abusive. Wow. I'm almost 10 years out of an abusive relationship. Ow. 10 years of being free. 10 years of experiencing life. Do you know how amazing that is? 10 years. You too are going to reach 10 years. I want you to celebrate 1 minute. 1 minute of being free. Celebrate it. Because you deserve it. Because you deserve to be you. Don't let someone suffocate you. Breathe. If anyone can take anything away from this, the second someone starts to make you feel like you are suffocating, you need to breathe. And you need to figure out what breathing looks like. You need to figure out what breathing looks like. And if you can't breathe in that relationship, then you gotta go. You've got to go. Because people will suffocate you until there's nothing left. And you're just a husk of yourself. Going through the motions of every single day. Because that's what I was. I was a husk. I wasn't me. That version of Shanice she feels like a friend that I loved, that it was painful to watch her. She feels like a friend that I love deeply. And I'm happy that friend's free. Because then I got to become me. I got to be someone who's exploring the world and themselves. And I want that for everyone. I want that for every single person. If you are watching this right now and you are dealing with domestic abuse or intimate partner violence, reach out to me. Let's figure out how we get you out. Let's figure out how we support you. Let's figure out how we can connect you to organizations. I think when I realized I was in an abusive relationship, like fully realized, it's because I had gone to a therapist and she taught me the cycle of abuse. And she was like, that's what you're in. You're in the cycle of abuse. The person's really lovey dovey, and then they get angry, and then they abuse you, and then they apologize, and then they're lovey dovey again. And I didn't realize I was in a cycle of abuse until she showed me that. And sometimes that's all it takes. It takes that one person being like, I see you. It's all it takes. I'll never forget one of the elders. I'll never forget one of the elders at my university. I went into her and I was into her office and I was crying and I was telling her about everything I was dealing with. And she looked at me and she just said, girl, you don't deserve that shit. That's what she said. You don't deserve that shit. It took other people reminding me of my worth because sometimes that's what it takes. When you're hearing so many people over so many years telling you that you don't matter, sometimes all it takes is one person telling you that you don't deserve to be treated that way. So let me be that one person for you, y'all. You don't deserve to be treated that way. You deserve love. You deserve care. You are loved. Don't let a fool trick you into thinking that you're not deserving of those things. Don't. Because it's not worth it. It's really not worth it. And so as this is coming to an end, I want to remind you that this journey is not easy. That you might not leave today. You might not leave tomorrow, but you will leave. You will leave. Hold on to that. Hold on to that belief that you can get out. Hold on to who you are. Because that's something that I regret. I allowed someone to derail me becoming the person that I am. Because he didn't stop this. He did not stop me. He did not, listen, they did not stop me. Any of the people who tried to suffocate me throughout my life did not stop me because I'm here breathing. And that is the most important thing. They can't stop you. They can pause you. They can cause a break, but they can't stop you. They can't stop you. And the person that you're going to become after them, because it's not because of them. Let me make this clear. I did not become this person because I was in an abusive relationship. My ex does not get to get any credit for the person that I have become. No, you were a derailment, sweetheart. You were a distraction from the person I was going to become, from the person I was becoming, from the person that I'm going to be. You were a distraction. A long one, but a distraction nonetheless. And that's all that abusive people are. You got to make them feel just as small as they've tried to make you feel. They're nothing. They are nothing compared to your brightness. Do you want to know why? Because they have to make you small in order for them to feel like they can shine. They are this small. Not even. You need a microscope to see them. That's how small they are compared to you. Remember that. They are nothing without you. Their whole life revolves around trying to make you small. They would not exist without you because guess what? Once you leave them, they have to go find someone else to do this to. Because they can't stand on their own. They can't be the person that you are. Because you will make it. You will survive. You will survive. It's hard and it's dangerous. It is dangerous. So make sure you have a safety plan. Make sure you have supports in place because it's going to be hard. But you got to be committed to it. You got to be committed to yourself. Even if you have babies out there, you got to do it for you. One of the things that my mom taught me when she left my dad, and I was 5 years old, 4.5, 5 years old, and she was pregnant, 6 months pregnant with my brother. And you know what my mom did? She left. She left. She got up and left. It did not mean not a single thing that she had children with this man. She left because she had to put herself first in order to put us first. So don't leave for your babies. Don't leave for your friends. Don't leave for your family. Leave for you because you deserve. You deserve to be happy. The biggest mistake you can do is doing something for somebody else. Do it for you. Your babies are going to be so much happier seeing you smile. Your friends are going to be so much happier seeing you genuinely enjoy life. Your family is going to be so much happier. And if your family are the abusers, leave them too. If your friends are the abusers, leave them too. Leave anybody who tries to make you feel small. Because they're just trying to make you as tiny as they are. So I'm going to leave some domestic abuse support numbers in the description of this episode. And again, if you ever need support, if you ever need to reach out to somebody, if you need resources, reach out to me. Reach out to me because you do not have to do this alone. There are people, there are networks, there are support systems out there that will help you get out so that you can live your life the way you want to live it, not for somebody else. So that you can be happy, so that you can breathe, so that you can thrive. Because why would you water somebody else while you're wilting away? Don't do that. Don't do that. So, as always, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate y'all. Big, 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 big. And thank you for listening to my story because this was a heavy session and I shared a lot. And I appreciate y'all allowing me to be vulnerable with you. So, thanks again. Check out the other episodes and tune into next week's episode. Love y'all. Bye, lovelies.